let's look at some of the more popular types of IP tools that network administrators will use and that you'll see on the Network Plus certification test. One of the more popular tools that I use is the ipconfig command. So if you press ipconfig, it'll give you a list of what the IP address is, subnet mask and gateway. However, you can add the /all, and then you'll get a lot more information, such as whether or not this is a DHCP IP address and where that's coming from, the primary DNS suffix information, and a lot more. Another one of these commands is ipconfig/release, which will release your DHCP IP address, and then you could type in renew to renew the IP address, and then it'll go out to the DHCP server and renew that IP address for you. This is great if you make any changes at the DHCP server level and then you want that client to get that information right away. You could also just restart the computer as well. And then the last one that I like to show here is the register DNS. Register DNS will register your IP address and your computer name as a host record inside the DNS server. Now this normally happens automatically by itself, but if you need to have it happen right away or update it, then this command is great. As far as tracing how you get from one place to another, we like to use the traceroute command. Now in Windows Server and clients, you're going to type in trace followed by RT, but in Linux and Unix and Macintosh, you spell it out all together. So I'll go ahead and type in traceroute, since this is a Windows 2025 server, and you can do a lot of different things, but I like to add this particular switch. This switch, the -D, will keep things from resolving as you go through the various different routes. So that way it goes through a little bit more quickly. I'm going to put in Google's DNS server and press enter. Now what you're seeing is a router hop for each one of these numbers. So router hop 1 is 1, then the second one is 2, etc. And it's saying how long it takes to get from each router to the next router to the next router, all the way until we get to our destination. You're also going to see some asterisks. And basically what that means is that either there was a timeout to the response for the ping request, which is what it is using here as it goes through this, or it just refused to respond with that particular request. And you will see that happen from time to time. So it took 12 hops, so there's 12 routers between my computer and Google's DNS server. And you can see that I got very good response time. So go ahead and try it yourself. See what kind of response times you get. If you're on Wi-Fi, it'll probably be much slower than if you're on a wired network such as I am. Another thing that you can use is something called pathping. Now this is something that you'll just see on Windows computers in my experience, but I'm going to once again put in Google's DNS server and press enter. It's a little bit like traceroute, but it gives you information in a slightly different format, and at the end it gives you a little bit of a report on what it found as it went along this different path. And here it is, computing statistics. And sometimes this takes a minute or so for it to show up, so you just have to be patient. And there's my statistics after they complete it. We can see the source and destination information as well. The last tool I'd like to show you is the NS lookup IP tool. And what this does is it looks up DNS information on named servers. So if I just type in NS lookup by itself, I'm using Google's DNS server as my DNS server in my IP settings. So you can see that it just shows up right away with Google's address. Now we can also look up a specific domain name, for instance. So I'll type in google.com. And now it's showing me the DNS servers for google.com. Of course, we have the 8888, which resolves to dns.google. And then we also have the IP version 6 addresses for the non-authoritative answer, along with an IPv4 address. So what's the difference? Well, when you have an authoritative answer like you do in the first portion, that means that that server can make changes to where dns.google can point. But a non-authoritative answer is like a read-only database. It's not going to be able to make any changes. It will only reflect whatever's on the authoritative server that's right above it. So it's a read-only database below and a writable database above. Besides command line IP tools, there are equivalent PowerShell networking tools with various options that you can use. IP tools are a very important part of any network administrator's daily tasks.